Hey, thanks for checking out the video. If you all like it, please like and subscribe, and hope you all enjoy it. Have a great rest of the day. Hey y'all, hopefully y'all can get me on screen here. Just checking in here at the old stone house. As you all can see, we have the Germanfest event going on. I'm just about to start in a few minutes, but definitely gonna be a pretty darn cool event. Goes over the German heritage in the colonies. We'll have some more information as the day goes on, but anyways, keep checking in. We'll see y'all soon. Name this. Anyone have a guess what that is? Some good old beeswax right there. Another one is partial. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna pour that wax right there in those cans right there, and then they're gonna put the wax into here, and that's a pre-formed thing.
They may dip it into the water to cool it.
And then what they're going to do is they're also going to get the wicks right there, and put them down in there, probably before they actually pour it.
Yeah,
and they're probably going to pour the wick through the bottom of it, the bottom part of this right there, and then they're going to obviously cool it off and stuff.
You want to be here helping, not me, because you know about all this.
And it's unfortunate. I know more than I should. Okay, cool little ginger snaps there. It's pretty fascinating.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I've got Terry coming, our friend coming to.
Another way to make candles is by getting the wicks and dipping the individual ones into the candle wax, and then letting it dry, and then dipping them in again. This is what that process is. Takes a little longer, but still suffice. This is cold cabbage salad. Got some pretty cool stuff. Got some ginger snaps and gingerbread.
It feels better if you make when you stop. It does. It feels so good.
Got some cool stuff going on up here.
That's my hat, and this is, no, my chair is right in the back room. That's on my weaving back there.
This is all your weaving?
Yes.
I was looking at that. Beautiful.
Yes. So those, there, some of them I haven't labeled for, if I'm doing something, people can look and see. So this is a twill weave. And see, a twill, you can tell a twill, it's got a diagonal. You can always find a diagonal line in a twill.
Okay.
And see this right here? This is a twill. See the diagonal line?
Yes.
Okay, now this is a plain weave. There's no diagonal line, but there's a diagonal pattern. But this is what's called huck lace.
Say it again.
Huck
Huck
lace. H-U-C-K.
Huck lace.
Huck
Huck.
lace. And then this is, you can tell this has got a diagonal on it. These have diagonals on it. Now this is a plain weave. It's actually plain. It's got some twill here and some plain weave here, and there's some canvas weave in here. The double here, the canvas weave.
How long have you been weaving?
I've been weaving. I got my loom at home in '87.
Oh wow. Okay.
And you've made all this right here.
And this right here. And this is wool.
And you've made all this.
This right here. I was at the manufacturing place is in Tryon. Not Tryon. before North Carolina. And I was down there and they had some millions of wool from the yard. And I got it.
And you've made all these
I made all these.
on something similar to this?
Similar, newer models, mine's a 4 shaft and this is a 2 shaft.
Okay.
And this right here is woven flax, is what you make linen out of.
Right.
Right, rust on that.
Okay. Wow.
Now here's a dumb question. What's the difference between a 2 shaft and a 4 shaft?
See these 2 things that go up and down here? This one has 2 on it, the other one has 4.
Okay. Interesting. Obviously there's a difference with the pattern and all that stuff?
Yes, they're more complicated. The more shafts you have, the more complicated patterns. Like this
Oh,
right
gosh.
here, this was done on 4 shaft. This was done on, it uses 6 shafts.
Oh my.
8 shaft here, but this has I use 6 shafts for the 8 shaft. On this one, this is 4 shafts. This is 4 shafts. Most of this stuff here is 4 shafts, except for this. I just got a new 8 shaft now. A new to me 8 shaft.
Wow.
And so, yeah. I made a baby like that. We always find I'm advancing the board right now. Because the seat is really high on it for a lady. See, generally when you're weaving, you want your feet parallel to the ground.
Okay.
But guys have longer legs, so my thought is this was probably made for a man. And back in the day, men did most of the weaving.
Really?
There were more men weavers than there were women.
That's crazy. I mean, I didn't know that actually. You know, that's, I mean, who would have thought?
Yes. So that's my thought, that this was probably made for a man.
And all that cool jazz.
This is referred to as a barn loom for one or 2 reasons. One is, if you look at the structure, how big the beams are, and it's mortar and tendon built like barns and houses were of the period. Or the fact of most people only wove during the winter, and so during the summer, the looms were kept in the barn. They took them apart, kept them in the barn because they didn't have room for them in the house unnecessarily. So, and they had too much going on during the spring, summer, and fall to be weaving. Most of the weaving was done during the winter. This is referred to as a plain weave. It's a 2-shaft loom. I am throwing the shuttle, and this is the weft thread. From front to back is referred to as the warp threads. Most of the clothing of the period was done in a plain weave. If you'll note, my linen jacket, short gown, my petticoat, and my apron are all a plain weave. So plain weave is what most of, like your shirts, not all shirts, but they are knit, woven shirts are mostly plain weave. So I've got about 270 threads, 370 threads warped onto the loom. You have to determine how long your project, what projects you're going to do, how much yarn you need for them, and then I have about 4.5 yards wrapped on the beam. In order to measure and count, you use that warping mill, that vertical warping mill. It's got the, you see the threads going through it? You start at the bottom, and it rotates, and you turn. Let me show you how that works. measured length up to the top. This is probably about 4.5. Each one of these is about a yard. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, plus or minus, so about 4.5 yards. You make the cross up here, and then you rotate back again. And you count that for 370 times. Yes. So,
Do you ever get confused as your numbers?
well, as you count, as you go through and count them, you'll tie them in groups of, say, for that right there, that's the reed is 7 dents, which means I can get 14, I have it set up for 14 threads per inch. So I would group them in groups of 14, tie them up, and then I would count the groups. And that's the easy way to keep track of it. And you may not do all 370 on one time. You might do 100, well, this right here, you might do 200, and then take that off, and then do the remaining off, because it does tend to fill up. And when you finish warping it, you carefully take it off from the bottom in a chain form. So this keeps it from being tangled and keeps all the threads in order. So this is a chain warp ready to put on the loom when this one's finished. So once you finish over here, then you can take this here. You know how chains work. You just find the end thread and then it just pulls apart. So you keep that there so it doesn't pull apart till you're ready. Then you bring it over here and you put it onto the back beam here, the back warping beam. You spread it across there, and under tension, you wind it onto the back beam. So it's a slow process. You sort of need 2 people to help you do this. One to wind the back and one to hold the yarns in front. And then after you've got it wound on, you thread each individual petal. And I do the back one and the front one, the back one, the front one, the back one, the front one, the back one, the front one. That's the pattern for this. And then this is the reed. The reed, those back in that time, if you look over here, was actually made of reed. That's metal, but this is actually reed. And that's where the name came from. The reed that was used to make that. This right here is a metal one. So it's not as fragile. So threading this reed is referred to as slaying the reed. So once you finish, you slay the reed, you tie it on to this beam here, to the front beam, wind it on, then you put it under tension. That advances, and then this is the gear that keeps it under tension. And now you can start weaving. So it took me, generally it takes me a day to wind a warp, a day to put it on the loom, set up the loom, and then you can start weaving the third day.
And how long does it take you to make it?
Well, it depends on what you're making. These tablecloths over here, I made this in about an hour. After you have everything set up. You can touch it. This is on the 4-chef loom, that's the 2-chef.
And you made this?
Yeah, I made everything here.
Do you have a shop?
No, I do this because I love it.
No, because there's a lady that has a shop in Salisbury that does looms, and she,
Oh,
if I'm not mistaken, it's what I read in the paper.
okay, so I'll have to look her up. Yes, you're welcome to pick these up. And then this right here in the back room, she's doing spinning, but I spun this. This is the flax plant that we processed. I spun this flax, and the flax, and when you weave it, you have linen. So typical of the time, they would either be weaving, this is wool, they'd either be using wool or flax when they were weaving of the time. Cotton didn't come around until the late 1700s and more prominent in the 1800s after the McCormick Swift or the cotton gin.
So if you made this, you had to do this by hand?
So this is a plastered room, unlike outside of here. And so we believe that this was actually the bedroom of Michael's third wife, who is Eleanor Wakefield Reeves' brother. And this room was probably finished for her after his death. In his will, he willed that she would continue to live in this house after his death, and the house went to his son David. So they likely plastered this room for her to live in. So an interesting story about Eleanor. So in Michael's will, he stated, oh, come on in. So, come this way. So in Michael's will, he stated that he gave the mulatto slave Betsy to his wife Eleanor. And we speculate that Eleanor didn't really like Betsy very much because he also said that she couldn't sell Betsy until 10 years after his death. All right? And at the first possible court date, because he died in 1807, in 1817 she was at that court and she sold Betsy as soon as she could. And it turns out that Betsy's daughter was also willed to his and Eleanor's daughter, Susanna, and her name was Emily. So we basically only know the names of 3 out of the 15 slaves that lived at this property, and it's because they were specified in these wills. You know, because often you wouldn't know the names of slaves on property records. All right, so a little bit more about this room though. So as you can see, we have these 2 lovely ladies working on different crafts in this room. But about this chest specifically, this is a blanket chest and it has the kind of original finish. It has like this tulip pattern. And it was very common for German furniture. They really liked to have painted chests and painted cabinets. So that was very much common for German furniture. And lots of people will come in and ask about this dress. As you can see, this is very different from what I'm wearing. I am dressed as an 18th century young woman, probably like 1750s, given on my sleeves. This is a dress from the 1800s, all right? So, 1800s, 19th century. Oh, that always confuses me. And we believe that this belonged to one of Michael Braun's granddaughters and was made on site. And it's made out of wool, and as you can see, it has wooden buttons that's painted to match. So this is just a little piece of history original to the house. All right, so any questions? Well, thank you.
So there's 2 different spinning wheels in the room here. This one here is a flax wheel. Flax is what is the raw material for linen, and you can tell that it's a flax wheel because of this distaff here. And then this one here is referred to as a great wheel, which is, it's also known as a walking wheel. Do I need to walk out of the way? You may need to walk out of the way because I've been walking over there. And I'm terrified to move the wheel because I got it up and running and it's a little temperamental. And I'm afraid if I move it, I'll jostle it out of alignment. So it's called a walking wheel because to spin the wool, you come and you walk back like this and feed the roving as you go. And if you're better than I am, you don't have to stop and feed it out. You just know how to do that one-handed. And you keep walking and spinning until you have basically as far as you can go and still turn the wheel, and you have enough twist in there to feel like you've got some good yarn. And then you do this, and then you walk it forward to get ready to do it again. And this would have been someone's task every day. Households, lots of children. The anecdotal history is that the oldest daughter was frequently the one who was responsible for spinning all day because it took a lot of yarn to fill that loom to make one piece of cloth. There have been estimates made that it can take as many as 12 spinners working regularly to keep one weaver in yarn on a regular basis. So somebody was at this wheel pretty much all the time if they were thinking about producing their own yarn. We do everything here. The reality of the 18th century.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm just not in uniform.
Now,
That's why they called me Johnny Appleseed.
Oh, yeah.
so, you got me off track there.
I'm sorry.
I have 2.5 minutes to get this out of you. If you don't vomit in that amount of time, the other active ingredient in here will kill you. Cyanide. Yes, this has a double whammy.
I'll eat one, Ben. I'll eat one.
Okay, next. Next, white humors. Sorry, I lost track of where I was. White humors. White humors means you're cold and dry. You've got too many white liquids in you. First white liquid, tears. No, I'm not going to punch you to get the tears out. I'm going to have you peel and chop an onion.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll work too.
Yeah. Second white liquid, sweat. I could have you run a marathon, but no. Wrap you in blankets and put you by the fire. Third white liquid, urine. I've only had one person admit ever saying that they could urinate on command. So,
Every 2 hours?
so I have a little assistant to help me. Okay? So Epsom salt. Now, in your century, there's a warning on the box. What does the warning state?
Do not consume.
Do not consume. Okay? Here's the reason. It's an extreme diuretic. If you're not careful, you will dehydrate yourself. Use it outside the body, go ahead. Works wonders on stiff joints and achy muscles. But don't put it inside. I know the dosage to be able to not kill you with it. Okay?
The third
I
white
heat
liquid.
up the blistering iron and I blister your chest. Then I take the flame and I pop the blisters. Pus is the last white liquid. Next, red humors. Red humors are when you're hot and sweaty, almost like you are right now. You got too much blood in you. That's what this is for. And no, I would not go after arteries or veins too hard to control bleeding. I'd go after large muscle groups like the 2 in the arms and the 2 in the legs. Gives me 8 possible choices. I'd make a cut and take a half a pint of blood out each time. No more than 2 pints of blood out in one setting. And a setting is a week's worth of time. I'm sorry, 2 weeks worth of time. No, I was right the first time. 1 week's worth of time. 2 pints, 1 week. Now, for you ladies, I wouldn't use this. I'd use these little guys.
Oh.
Much smaller scar. Got to keep your vanity. And lastly, black humors. Black humors are when you're hot and dry. You have too much fecal matter in you. In other words, you're impacted. That's what this is for.
Oh, my.
And it's not to suck it out.
It's an enema.
It's an enema.
Oh, no, the other leg. Yeah. No, it just lays it flat. Hi, these are the toys and games.
Okay. Now, I wouldn't do it just once. I'd do it until no more fecal matter comes out, because you want to get it all out so you can go regularly again.
Yeah, it's flushing a car.
Exactly. Except you're flushing your system.
Wow.
The dice over here are for math games.
Okay. Well, I didn't see that.
We'll have a midday meal around noon for our group that's here in the house. It is. And there are 2 glasses of my product.
Making some cold salad. Pretty cool.
This is the salad.
And brown sugar is white sugar with molasses in it.
Making some food in the brick oven.
Celery seed. All kinds of yum. All right.
Pork roast with some potatoes and onion.
And it's been rubbed with stone ground mustard. And I'm coming around. Good job. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have to get in. Go ahead, go ahead. Don't leave it in there long. Okay, go ahead.
You got your light it off, pour it in your weapon, load your ball, and ready to fire.
You've seen the bayonet, you know how those work.
I've seen it, but I've never seen it attacked. So the way it attaches, brown band, you notice something about the front sight, it's more of a rectangular look. Whereas those are just, triangular, thin pieces of metal.
And it's a big debate among reenactors whether it's actually a sight or whether it is just a bayonet load.
Right. So, it just attaches on there like that. I can still fire as it's open up there. Yeah. But now I've got essentially a pipe that I can stick with.
And when you learn about the Revolution in school, always remember this: militia stay around till the pointy thing goes on the end of the gun, and then we run. That's our whole motto. So your militia, the militia law is you have to have a firelock with 9 shots. You have to have edged weapons and a edged weapon. Your edged weapon can be a long knife, which is what Mason's got. Right there's mine. A tomahawk. It's pretty obvious what tomahawk's for. It's there to chop wood. Most of the time you're using this for camp duties, but if it comes to a pinch, you start swinging it and somebody's going to get hurt. But what the militia, especially here, because the amount of militia is issued with is swords. The Cornwallis is coming up from South Carolina, up to North Carolina, the Rowan County militias, the Rowan County blacksmith, the Mecklenburg County blacksmith, and West Day Ireland County blacksmiths are told we need swords and hangers, and it's called a hanger, for our militia. So they make these crudely made swords, and they are made from whip saws, which are crosscut saws most of the time. And back then they're hammered out, so they're fairly thick, and they're just for function. No pretty look.
Compare that sword to this sword, an officer's infantry sword. All right, nice guard on it, nice handle. The blade is a bit more refined. All right, it's not as long as that because that's made for on horseback use. This for commanding the troops around the field, but also to defend yourself in it.
And what a lot of people don't get is as many guns that are in the Revolution. The Revolution is not won with the gun.
It's a very finishing weapon.
Won with the sword and the bayonet. And so America's 3 biggest victories, only one of them is won with a gun. You have Kings Mountain, which is your big militia victory that shatters Cornwallis's left front flank going up through the mountains.
Ferguson.
It shatters that. And it is won almost exclusively with the long rifle and the Fowler. The other 2 are Yorktown, obviously, and Monmouth. In those, the Americans are some of the only times the Americans lead successful bayonet charges against the British and push them back. Monmouth is technically a draw, but a draw in this war is an American victory. That's what I like to say. But Yorktown, we have the charging of redoubts number 9 and 10. When they charge, when Alexander Hamilton leads his units up, they are told to take the flints out of their guns because they don't want the British to hear them, and they charge over the redoubts and stab them with bayonets. And those are 3 biggest victories on the one with the gun. So the gun plays a huge role, but the sword and the bayonet is what wins it. Is what fights this war.
I don't have it here, but something the colonists might have is what they call a plug band. Basically a large
It's a big dagger you stick it into your gun barrel.
Tapered head, you jam it in there. Can't fire, but when you're out of ammunition or they're too close.
Mason, I want to see you fire with your plug band.
No, I'd rather not. So,
shorten your barrel a little bit.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit.
Yeah.
Actually, these rifles, they are made for competition. A lot of people shoot these for competition.
So, you have any questions about what we've got out here? Anything that we're dressed up as or the militia?
Yeah, any of them.
And you can tell that not just from the wax itself, you can also tell by the wicks and the style of which they did it and how often they had to do it. Really told you about the person and their means in the community. So, for example, somebody who had like a tallow candle, and these aren't tallow, but tallow is rendered animal fat, okay, would be of lower means because they were cheaper candles. They could not afford a higher quality candle. And tallow is not a high quality candle. It does not produce a high quality candle. And when it burns, it smells like McDonald's, which maybe is good, but it melts very, very quickly. It produces a lower light, high smoke point, or excuse me, low smoke point, so it smokes quite a bit. Creates a lot of soot, things like that, a lot of mess in the house. But you know, if you need light and you're not making any money, then that works out just fine, right? But somebody of higher means would potentially have beeswax, so less smoke, less actual wax melt, so there's less mess. It burns slower. You're going to get 6 to 8 hours out of a good beeswax candle versus maybe 2 out of a tallow candle. And it's a slightly brighter candle, and it smells sweet as well. And then you really move up the chain to bayberry. Bayberry has almost no wax melt. It comes from the bayberry bush. And then further up you hit spermaceum. And spermaceum would be the best candle you can get in the 1700s. So any idea where you can get spermaceum from? I'm gonna leave that one open to anybody who wants to propose an idea. No? It comes from the head of a sperm whale. Oh, thank you. And so that's illegal now. Can't have spermaceum candles anymore. So this one's almost done. So really the candles themselves speak to the kind of person that had them, and even the wicks. So somebody of low end would have a wick like this in the 1700s, and this is flax. And what's really cool about candles and wicking with wicks is that when candles burn, it's not the wick that actually burns. It's actually the wax that burns, right? And the wick's purpose is why it's called a wick, is to draw the melted wax up to the flame, okay? Which is why a high quality candle will actually have no wax melt, which means that the wick can draw up at a rate that could be burned, and they are the same, right? The wax can melt at a rate that the wick can draw it, that it can burn. It all equals the same, so the highest quality candles get no actual melt themselves. So something like cotton, so like cotton clothes, or hemp, which is really prevalent here in the backcountry because hemp grows like crazy here, right? Hemp wicks, they draw stuff up really well. But then you get something like this, which is flax. So linen, okay, is not great for candles, but they would still use them because this was cheap, right? So person with lowest means would tend to have a tallow candle with a linen or a flax wick to that. And what's kind of interesting about this is, so we use linen now for like sportswear because it repels and it dries out really quickly, right? That is not a good quality for a candle. You do not want to repel the wax. You want to absorb the wax. And so what you end up getting is a very beautiful candle with a wick that starts out really nice, but that can't draw anything, so you end up burning the wick. And you have this beautiful candle with no wick out of it. So it takes a lot to actually make a really good flax wick, and to braid it correctly to where it will actually absorb some of the material that it's trying to promote the burning of. So yeah, it's the interesting part about the history of how candles fall into play. Anyways, so what you're going to do is you're going to bring it in. You're going to keep it open with your hand a little bit. You're going to bring it in, and it's going to hit the bottom, and you're going to let it fall like sideways. You're going to hold it, okay? You're going to completely submerge this thing, and you're going to pull it out straight up, okay? But you have to do it quickly. So down, straight up, okay? What we're going to try to do now is create an actual taper. Okay, because we see we're starting to get a little bit of taper, but it's still more kind of conical in shape. This one's doing a nice little taper. Okay, doing that dip and pull out will start to promote the actual taper at the top. So this is maybe two dips until we're done.
So just got to my hand all the way to the...
Until you feel it hit the bottom.
Okay.
Yep, hold up. There we go. Yeah, see, now we're getting a little bit cleaner top. Yep. This one we need a little bit deeper in there. There we go. So now we're starting to get just a little taper at the top. because we want that little taper at the top, otherwise it'll burn weird. Okay. So that one I would say is actually done. So that's probably 14 dips to get there. This one I think we're at maybe 6 right now. So it's between 12 and 15 dips tends to give you a good enough candle. Really what you're looking for is not necessarily length, you're looking for the sort of the width at the bottom. Something that would typically fit into a candle holder, right? They're all typically about the same size. So you're looking for about that width. Too small, it won't hold. Too fat, it won't fit. Yep. It's the story of one's life. All right. Put you to work. So keep them even. Straight in, straight out. This one's just straight in, straight out.
Okay.
You'll feel it hit the bottom. That's it. Right, and we see how the color changed to white. So we won't do this again until it goes back to yellow, because that means it's hard, right? And the temperature of the candle itself has dropped back down. And we need that to happen. That way it can absorb, it can take on more wax. Otherwise, we put this in, we're gonna lose the layer of wax, because that's hot wax. So we're gonna lose the layer of wax that's on there. We don't want to lose the wax. So we're gonna let that cool for a quick minute. We'll put you to work now. All right. So get them, let them calm down a little bit, and then straight in, straight out. You keep on working so I can eat my lunch.